Hi, everyone!
Hello!
Welcome back to another week of Those Nerds You Know. My name is Ethan.
And I'm David.
And we are Those Nerds You Know.
Yes, we are.
Indeed. So, today we're going to do the other thing we like to do, as opposed to having a big discussion. So, like, when we started out our podcast, the way we did it is we had a big discussion, and then each of us would report on something small that we felt needed to be talked about.
We'd talk, and then each of us would report on something. But our episodes got pretty long doing that.
Yeah.
But also, we would go through a lot of stuff pretty quick.
Yeah. So now, since we don't do things like news or anything like that, like we don't do small, tiny things that fill up time, we just talk about a large topic usually.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do now is we'll have weeks where we just do a large topic where we both talk about one thing,
like we've done in the past couple weeks.
And then like today, other times we'll be doing things where one of us or both of us will come and report on something that we feel needs to be talked about in the world of nerd.
Yeah.
And again, this is a podcast where David and I talk about the
nerdy things
that we like to talk about. And that's it. That's essentially what we do.
Yep.
Welcome aboard if it's your first time. Hopefully you made
all welcome
this far in 2 minutes or so.
Except for you, Jeffrey.
We don't like you.
Whoever you are. You know what you did.
So today, David's going to yammer at us for a little while
about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Woo!
But before I get to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I want to talk about Magic the Gathering just briefly.
Absolutely not.
Just briefly.
Not allow.
Yes, well.
All right, well, everyone, skip ahead 30 minutes.
Oh, it's like that.
And you'll get to hear about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's good. I'm
going to talk about Magic. I'm going to talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But briefly, I wanted to talk about how, so in the news for Magic right now, Wizards just announced a couple weeks ago, maybe just a week ago. Like, it hasn't been that long. It's only been a few days. So they just announced their new online game they're putting out called Magic the Gathering Arena, which is going to be their online version of Magic the Gathering, but it's like going to be more in the vein of Hearthstone than Magic the Gathering Online, which is their previous thing, and it's going to be probably better than Magic the Gathering Duels and Magic the Gathering whatever the other ones were. Magic the Gathering has put out quite a few online versions of their games or games relating to their games that were for online devices. So, but this one's supposed to be a little bit like going to be the full package. Is going to be something bigger for. Like, it's going to be more in the vein of Hearthstone in that it's going to be, like, kind of more flashy, and it's going to do a lot of, animations and, voice lines and things like that for some of the Planeswalkers and things like that. So
it's going to be hip and rad.
It's going to be great. It's going to focus more at first on standard, but we don't, on the standard format in Magic, which is just the most recent sets and stuff, and it's coming out around the time, or it's not coming out. Right now, what's going to happen is they're doing what's called a closed beta, which means, you fill out a thing, and then if they want you to play the game, they'll give you a beta key, and you can play their game in beta.
They decide whether or not you're worthy.
Yeah, and you'll give you access to the game, and you can play it, and then give them feedback and stuff.
Gotcha.
And so I only mention it because their website is out right now, playmtgarena.com. If you go there, you can put your email in, be like, hey, Magic the Gathering, this sounds like something I would like to do, and you can get a beta key.
Right now. Hey, guys. I'll test your game for you.
Also,
my advanced knowledge of your TCG, I'll allow you to know exactly what you should and should not be doing.
Also, I found a thing where they were talking about how to get your email higher up on the priority list for the beta keys, and they talked about how if you play Magic the Gathering Duels, you should do this thing, whatever it is. If you play Magic the Gathering Online, you should, I think it's get involved in the Ixalan.
Put Magic the Gathering in your email ID somehow.
No, it's if you go
Ethan at magicthegathering.leblanc
.leblanc
at gmail.com.
At gmail.com. But no, you go to
Ethan.
If you play Magic the
Gathering at Yahoo.
If you play Magic the Gathering online, I think you get involved in the Ixalan pre-release. But if you're like me, where you only play the card game, like the actual tangible card game,
David the Gathering at Hotmail.
Yeah. You have to go to a card shop for the pre-release of Ixalan this coming next Saturday and Sunday, the 23rd and 24th. And you go to that and give them your DCI DCID, which is your, I don't know, it's a number that Wizards of the Coast gives you.
It's ID that allows you to get into Washington D.C. Yeah,
no,
David.
It's your official.
Come on.
It's your official identification as a Magic the Gathering player.
Not stupid.
Yeah, but no, it looks like it's going to be pretty rad.
It's like your invitation to Duelist Kingdom.
Kind of, yeah,
gotcha.
A little bit, kind of like our cards that we got for Konami to be official duelists.
We're official duelists. Baby. I love that exists.
Yes.
We have that.
Yep. They got to find some way to put us all in a box, access our information and such.
I still think they should give us a VHS and a dueling glove.
Right. get some star chips or whatever it is, or
that would be so cool.
Or locator cards from Battle City. But
locator cards, like, that's so... What if you beat someone who has the same locator card as you?
Yeah.
Then what do you do, Kaiba?
Yeah, I don't know.
Friggin' genius.
But yeah, that was just something I wanted to briefly touch on. By the way, Ixalan's coming out. Dinosaurs and Pirates. I'm so excited.
Dinosaur. There's dinosaurs, pirates, and
vampires and merfolk. That's the other
merfolk.
That's the other tribe.
Merpeeps.
I have made a cat deck, and I'm probably going to continue making. Continue with my cat deck, because this new set's coming out with a lot of travel support. So like cards that affect your deck, or like help your deck better if you're only running one type of creature, and which is the case for if you make a dinosaur pirate.
Tribal support. I heard travel support.
No, tribal.
They help your cats get around. There's a subway card. Get them to the other side.
I mean, we have vehicle cards now.
Get them straight to your opponent's life.
We started getting in Kaladesh, but now we have pirate ship vehicles that are coming out in this set, which is going to be dope.
Will it,
I'm super excited about pirate ships.
From all of the explanation of the way vehicles work, it seems like they could be overcome real easily.
Yeah, they're basically like ways for you. They're like
can't we? You explained to me that you can make a pirate ship walk the plank. Yes.
Only if it's a creature.
Right. So once you've put all your work into making this thing a creature,
then you'd lose your ship, but not your creature that pilots it.
Okay.
So,
but it's still, doesn't it take a lot to cast in the first place?
They're usually pretty cheap.
They're cheap to cast.
They're cheap to cast. To crew them is that. But even then, a lot of them aren't that expensive to crew. Like it only costs like 1 power or 2 power to crew them, or whatever. In which case, all you do is tap a creature with that much attack, and you piloted that.
What's the benefit to piloting a vehicle?
The vehicles are generally more powerful than a normal creature. And they generally have some kind of other benefit as well. Like one of the pirate ships right now, also, even whether it's a vehicle or not, or whether it's a creature or not, gives the benefit that it gives all your pirates +1/+0. And so I think it also does something like if your pirates do something. Also, there's a ship called the Conquering Vessel or something like that, where it has it's a 2/10 for 2, I think, to cast. It's pretty cheap. So it's 10 toughness, and it has the effect that if it attacks at the end of your combat, you exile it, and then at the end of your turn, it comes back as a land called the Conqueror's Fortress, and you can tap it for. You can either tap it for colorless land, you can pay, or you can colorless mana. You can pay 2 and tap it to draw a card and discard a card. You can pay 4 and tap it to just draw a card, or you can pay 6 and tap it to grid a card from your graveyard back to your hand. So it's a card that gives you it's a ship that builds up into a fortress that you can use to get card advantage. Cool. Yeah, pirates are pretty dope.
Magic.
Yes.
How big is the presence of dragons in Magic?
They're pretty big. They've been doing.
Is there a dragon tribe?
Yeah, there's a dragon tribe. In the most recent 2017 Commanders set that they just put out, they're all the tribal decks. I got the cat deck. They have a vampire deck, a wizard deck, and a dragon deck. That was the 4th deck. The dragon deck, apparently, the one they put out isn't as great, only because it runs all 5 colors, and apparently the mana base, like the lands they provided in the deck, aren't that great for getting the right color mana when you need it and stuff. But the cards themselves, the dragons themselves, are pretty dope. But it's the way the deck is built, it's hard to cast them because you need to get. It needs upgrades. You need to buy some. Lands are more expensive than the other cards in the history of Magic, is what I'm hearing. Like, there are certain cards that are really, really expensive, but generally, as far as the history of Magic, dual lands and lands that give you extra mana and stuff like that, they're really, really super expensive. And so really for this deck, they just put out like some cheap dual lands that aren't that great.
Gotcha. That's neat. Yeah. I was just wondering.
Yeah. No, dragons are pretty cool.
Cool to build a dragon.
In the current set, I think there's only a few dragons. Amonkhet had some drakes, which are kind of like dragons, but not really. Like they had a combo where you could produce drakes every time you discarded a card or drew a card or something like that. But yeah. So that's Magic. So that's all I want to say about Magic. But I only mentioned that.
Is it all, David?
So that people could go out and get a beta key. I'm going to get a beta key. I'm trying to get a beta key. I put my email in there, and I'm going to go to the Ixalan pre-release at my local card shop to try and get my name higher on the list.
What a nerd.
Yeah. I want to play this game, Ethan. It looks so good. But yeah, we'll see. I'd like a more accessible way to play Magic than to have to go to a card shop every so often whenever I have a Friday evening open.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Understandable, I guess.
But today, I'm going to talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's the major topic today. More specifically, well, I say more specifically, I really want to talk about the show in general. But specifically, I finished season 5 not too long ago. It finished airing, I believe, earlier this year, sometime around May, I think, and it's getting its fourth season. Sorry, not its fifth season. Its fourth season. Its fifth season is airing later this year, towards the fall, winter time period.
Que lindo.
Yeah, yes. So we're getting close to maybe season 5 coming out soonish. I'm not certain, but in that vein, we're going to talk about that today. So, just off the bat, at the beginning, I want to just not go into some no spoilers stuff, and then later on I want to go into some spoiler territory, more specifically in the current season. But yeah, so in general, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., for those who don't know, is an ABC show featuring or starring Clark Gregg playing Phil Coulson from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He was in the Avengers movie, and he was in a lot of the
guy who died.
He was a lot in the Phase 1,
but he's dead. How could I have a show about somebody who's dead?
Well, apparently he wasn't as dead. They fixed him. They made him not dead.
Okay.
But yeah, so he's back, and he's an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and he's got this team of agents that he's formed together, and they basically go around and they kind of solve strange cases that are interesting but not big enough for one of the Avengers or something.
They're the X-Files of the Marvel universe.
Yeah, that's a good comparison actually. They're pretty or the Men in Black maybe. Cuz they do some pretty interesting things. Generally they're fighting
sorry guys, you're going to hear you're going to hear the podcast nephew at some point.
Yeah.
Just screaming.
I'll edit some of it out, but I don't know if I can get all of it.
You won't. Guarantee.
But in the show, they tend to the show takes place in the same Marvel Cinematic Universe as the movies they've been putting out. It makes a lot of connections to those movies, which is kind of neat. They make references to the events of the Avengers. They make references to the events of some of the bigger titles like Captain America, Winter Soldier, and those kinds of things. But they haven't done a whole lot with the... they haven't done a lot lately. They haven't made a lot of those kinds of connections lately, but they find neat workarounds around why they wouldn't be involved in the stuff that goes on. In Phase 2 stuff...
Are they neat, or are they just throw away?
They're kind of neat, because the way the show does it is pretty ingenious, I think.
Well, I mean, they'd have to keep most of it under wraps because most people don't know that what's his bucket's alive.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
So
but also,
that's
but also, S.H.I.E.L.D. is kind of a secret organization, even though it's not that secret. People know what S.H.I.E.L.D. is, but they don't really know what S.H.I.E.L.D. does, kind of thing. So yeah, it's a little bit like that. It's kind of a secret agency. But yeah, so the show itself started off with really, really high ratings. I think had a lot to do with the fact that it was new on the block, and it was pretty fresh after Avengers and stuff, and people were getting into it, and Marvel was kind of going up in a big way, but it kind of had mixed reviews. But also as the seasons have progressed, the writing has gotten a little better, and so their reviews are getting better, but the ratings have kind of gotten more consistent. But yeah, I'm a big fan of it. The show, not all of it's good, but some of it's pretty good. I think one of the big parts that makes the show really, really good is the characters involved in it. So Phil Coulson is he's the the main agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., I guess. He's like the kind of the one in charge and kind of the one he's kind of the star of the show, basically. But they introduced some new characters. Most of them aren't based off anybody in the comics. They're all like new characters, kind of. But they have Ming-Na Wen, who's the actress that played Mulan. She is playing an agent called Melinda May, who is like basically like Coulson's like kind of like, she's kind of his muscle. She's kind of his combat specialist, whatever. She's really, really tough. And, you know, she's kind of stoic, and she's kind of got a dark backstory, basically, that we find out later on in the show and stuff. Well, we have Grant Ward, who's the guy we introduced in the first season, he's like kind of not new to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's not new to the agency of S.H.I.E.L.D., but he's new to Coulson's squad. Like, he didn't know at the beginning of the show that Coulson was alive until he was put on Coulson's team. You get this girl Skye, who's a hacker, they introduce her pretty early on in the show, and Coulson is like, you know, Coulson becomes very protective of her, and, you know, she basically becomes an official member of the team.
Like a daddy conflict?
Yeah, well, kind of, yeah. She originally wasn't a member of the team. She was kind of hacking S.H.I.E.L.D., and so, gotcha. But he ended up getting her to join the team. They have, but I think my favorite characters are Leo Fitz and Gemma Simmons, the two tech specialists. Gemma being more of a biological, she's like kind of a doctor to do with like the body, yeah. And Fitz is a kind of a person who's more technical based, like he's more about robots and circuitry and programming and things like that kind of stuff. And the two of them are together all the time, and to the point where they call them Fitzsimmons. Like, they just like put their last names together and they just call them Fitzsimmons, and they refer to the two of them together. They're super cool. Gemma is cool, British, and Leo is Scottish. And
well, of course you like them. Okay, gotcha. Now I see.
Wait, why? No, I just wanted to say, I'm just bringing that up because Gemma is basically Hermione, and it's funny because she actually says in the first season that she's not Hermione, and I'm like, but you kind of are. Like, imagine Felicity from Arrow, but make her a stronger, more intelligent character.
Is Felicity not intelligent?
She's intelligent. She's like
one of the hallmarks of her character.
She's tech smart, but I'm talking about like not just
making her more savvy.
More savvy, yeah. She's a little more savvy, yeah. Because this girl's also into espionage, and she knows how to handle herself in a fight and things like that. Like she's not just a computer.
All the things
nerd.
You want in a woman.
Yes, quite. And they have a few other characters they get introduced later on in the show. All the things you want in a woman.
That's not the things you want, David?
Yes, well, I wanted to be tech savvy.
Prick.
And I want her to be able to kick my butt, yes. But no, they have other characters they introduce later on in other seasons and stuff. Generally, the team tends to fight some big villain or big organization that seems to be, have some kind of supernatural element to it. It generally tends to be Hydra, although this most recent season it was not, and that was very refreshing. But yeah, generally the characters along their journey, they have a lot of growth and a lot of really neat twists throughout the show, and that's very, very cool. If you like espionage shows or espionage movies, this is actually pretty good. It's a pretty decent spy show, and the ABC puts a lot of money into this show. Like, I didn't realize the budget, because the budget it's a TV budget, so it's like some of the special effects you're like, okay, this is okay for television. Yeah. But it was interesting because I thought they had the same or around the same budget as the Netflix shows, and apparently the Netflix shows are made way cheaper. They're made like real on the cheap. ABC's getting like fistfuls of money compared to Netflix shows, so that's why they have a lot more special effects. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And yeah, if you haven't checked it out, I suggest you do. And I think around this time is when I will talk about some spoilers.
With that, if you haven't seen it, go away.
Go away, yes.
Unless you don't intend to see it and still haven't seen it.
Yes,
like
quite.
Myself. Strap in.
Like this nerd.
You're going to learn some things.
So, the first season of I want to briefly kind of skim over the first 3 seasons before I get to the 4th season. The 4th season's
how dare
super good, but the first 3 seasons kind of like explain a few things. So in the first season, their big case, I guess, is they're looking for this thing called Project Centipede, which is a project that some
Centipede,
secret organization is trying to turn normal people into like
centipedes.
Trying to give them They're trying to give them powered people powers.
Please move on.
Trying to give them powers. Gotcha. And during this time, they basically discovered throughout the first season that really Project Centipede is run by Hydra. Like I was saying,
of course,
Hydra is the villain in the show,
just like S.H.I.E.L.D. and everything else.
But also another mystery in the first season that's solved is another mystery that's solved in the first season is how Philip Coulson survived.
I was laughing at Podcast Nephew in case you leave that laugh in. I want
yes, quite.
Our listeners just think I'm just
laughing at nothing.
Hysterically at nothing. I have my reasons, everyone.
Yes, quite. So Coulson apparently went through a project called Tahiti, which is a project that...
Not a place, a project.
Not a place, a project. It was named Tahiti, and it was named that way because, or really what the idea was, the project was what brought him back to life. It was a project created by Nick Fury to help bring back an Avenger. And...
he went through this... As in, it's a thing that happened to him when he was dead?
When he was dead, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it brought him back to life. I don't know exactly how it works. I know it uses the blood of Kree aliens? One of the blue aliens. I don't know what... not Kree, maybe.
That's racist.
Is it? It's a fictional race. But no, there's
one of the blue ones, David?
There's a blue one in Marvel. But
I think it's Kree. Are there any other blue ones?
I think it's Kree, but I don't remember if it was Kree or if it was no, I'm thinking Skrull. Yeah, Kree is the right one. Yeah, it was Kree. It was Kree aliens because Skrull is what's coming up in Miss Marvel. But yeah, so yeah, he was brought to life with like kind of like the blood of a Kree alien. Basically, it had some regenerative powers and it brought him back. But in the process, the process was quite painful, and apparently it was so painful. There's this scene where like you find out that like basically Philip Coulson was like kind of begging for death the whole time, and they were bringing him back. And so what they did was they kind of rewrote his memory to make him believe he was recovering on Tahiti, in an island, Tahiti, and his memory of the island that when people would ask him how was Tahiti, he would tell them it's a magical place.
A wondrous place.
That's all he knows about it. Or, like, that's all he would say about it. He knows a lot about Tahiti. He has fake memories of being in Tahiti, but, like, he can never really, like, he could never go into details. You know, he can never really be like, oh, this is what I did in Tahiti. This is what I felt. Those kinds of things. He would just say, it's a magical place. And that was kind of weird.
It's a magical.
But we figured out that was because brain was being covered up. That was all season 1. We also found out in season 1 that S.H.I.E.L.D. was being infiltrated by Hydra. I say being infiltrated. It was definitely infiltrated by Hydra. As we saw in Captain America...
picked apart by Hydra.
The Winter Soldier, was it? Was that the one?
Yes.
When the Triskelion fell? Okay, yeah. So, that was towards the end of season 1 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And apparently, it was not originally how they intended the show to end, but because that moment in the movie was like it changed the Marvel Universe so much that they basically had to go back and rewrite the ending of the show to match the ending that Hydra had rewritten, had taken over S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah, or whatever, had infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. And that was redonkulous. It was a really neat twist, and a big part of that was that Agent Ward, the guy who joined up with Coulson's team at the beginning of the show, was working with Hydra. He was a Hydra agent the whole time. And so he turned on them, and it was messed up. Especially since he had kind of like gotten this kind of attraction, kind of closeness with Skye, the girl that was
the Skye. Yes,
the girl that was the hacker that would join the team.
Ah, yes,
as well. In season 2, Coulson and the team kind of basically do whatever they can to try and regain the public trust in S.H.I.E.L.D. as an organization.
This is season 2.
Season 2.
How'd they do that?
Well, they...
Galas.
Kind of.
Fireworks.
They basically did what they could to try and, like, prove that...
animals.
they basically tried to take down Hydra for
Community
good,
service.
Community service.
Up the neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, they cleaned up like Thor's mess from Thor 2 and
killing
things
terrorists.
Like that. Yeah, I mean, they did some things. I think that might have been season 1 though. But yeah, they did what they could. They stopped they stopped issues around the world that Hydra was definitely involved in. And
how does your operation change when you know you have to gain trust back?
They had to. So I don't remember
Well, we were just stopping bad guys and keeping the peace. Now we're gonna have to stop some bad guys and keep the peace.
Well,
publicly,
they had to prove they had to prove to the public that Hydra wasn't still that Shield wasn't still what's the word I'm looking for? Compromised.
I think a nice tweet would resolve that. Hey guys, no Hydra here. We're all good. KK, love you, bye.
KK, love you, bye.
Hashtag Marvel.
Hashtag Marvel. What's Marvel in that universe?
There's Marvel in that universe.
There is now.
Well, there was beforehand. It existed.
Well, a
Marvel Comics did exist in the
Marvel universe.
Yeah,
I did not know that. Mm-hmm. What the heck?
I learned about that recently. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Well,
super did.
That's cool. Hashtag Marvel. All right, but so they basically had another plot to unravel with. There was also a Hydra.
There were also comic books in DC.
Mm-hmm.
Which is part of the reason why they had to. I've heard that that's an explanation as to why there are different universes, so they could fix that crap. Because like, I think early Barry Allen's Flash's name.
Mm-hmm.
I think I heard that early Barry Allen mentioned that he wanted to become a superhero, like one of his favorite superheroes before him in a comic book. And I think the one he was referencing was the first Flash.
Jay Garrick?
Yes.
Oh.
And they were like,
maybe.
Haha! I guess they thought it was cute, and then they realized it was strange, and they were like, oh, crap.
The way I had heard it was that Jay Garrick was a hero in his universe, or like Jay Garrick, but they may have written...
Maybe it wasn't
stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know, but
DK.
Yeah, but no, I did know he looked up to Jay Garrick and wanted to be the Flash, and so he did that.
Yeah. Comics in comic book things. Also, there's the line from the Spider-Man movie, the first one with Homeboy, Tobey Maguire.
Okay,
when Aunt May tells him that he's not Superman.
Superman, yes, that is cool. Yeah, no, I did believe that. That was cool.
There are DC comics in the Marvel universe.
In the Marvel universe, yes.
Or in that.
Or in that, yeah, in Sony's Marvel universe, yeah.
Sony's
no, I get that.
Spider-Verse.
But so a big part of season 2 was that Ward not only was part of Hydra in season 2, but he was also kind of leading Hydra in season 2, and so basically, but he knew all of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the cast, so well because he had spent the entire first season with them that he knew how to get in their heads, he knew how they all thought, and he was kind of like constantly outthinking them.
He seemed like a good guy in the first season, and he was revealed to be a bad guy, and then in season 2 he just rode home the bad guy thing.
Yeah, gotcha. He did really, really bad things. Tried to kill all of them and stuff like that. And also, Hydra had this like kind of cult-like thing going on where they were opening a portal to another plane, and at one point...
Like you do?
At one point...
they just want to be planeswalkers. They like magic just as much as you do.
Gemma gets...
to play for realsies.
Gemma gets sent through the portal to the alternate plane. And...
Who?
Gemma.
Gemma.
Yeah.
I don't think I realized earlier how strange that name is.
Gemma.
Spell it.
Jemma. Gemma.
Yeah, still weird.
Gemma Simmons.
Gemma Simmons.
One of the tech people, Gemma Simmons. She gets sent to the alternate plane, and and Fitz does all he can to bring her back. And Fitz not by himself, but for a bit there's kind of a rough patch because they don't know. I think him getting her back kind of ends up having to be resolved towards the end of the season, or maybe the beginning of the third season even. But because he's basically she disappears. Yeah, no, she gets sucked out at the end of season 2, I think.
Cliffhanger like.
Yeah, cliffhanger like. In the season 3, they have to find her back in the beginning of it. But it's a really rough time. But it's a really powerful time for Fitz and Simmons as a couple. You kind of start to see them because up to that point, you kind of already kind of shipped them. Even the cast called them Fitzsimmons because they always seemed to be more like close friends than anything. But it's like this moment where you see that like Fitz really, really, really cares for Gemma. That he'd like go to the ends of the world to find her, basically, and it's kind of neat that they do that. I know what it is. It wasn't during this. It wasn't during the next season. It was they broke the seasons up in half. Is what it is. Everybody's doing those mid-season finales and things like that. Yeah. So like there was a break in the show, and then but
gotcha.
Yeah. And so she was done that. Also during this time, they're dealing with Inhumans, or they're introduced to the Inhumans, and Inhumans being regular humans with DNA or like they have markers in their DNA that they have in common with, I think, an alien race of some kind. I think Skrull, maybe? I'm not certain what exactly, but they're part alien, basically. Like, part of their DNA is alien, and they're basically like X-Men, but instead of growing up into their powers like the X-Men do, they have to go through what's called Terrigenesis, which is where they come in contact with the Terrigen crystal, or when you break a Terrigen crystal, it makes a smoke, and come in contact. You can either come in contact with the crystal itself or come in contact with the smoke, and you go into Terrigenesis, where you go into like kind of a cocoon, and then when the cocoon breaks, you have your superpowers. You're a superhero.
Strange.
And it's neat. Or it's neat in the show, because Inhumans now is a show, and I hear it's awful. But the way they portray Inhumans in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is actually pretty rad.
Pretty rad.
Yeah.
Is Inhumans supposed to... So Inhumans is supposedly happening in the same...
It's happening in the same universe,
as
yeah.
S.H.I.E.L.D.
I don't know how, because the stuff they're doing in the Inhumans show has nothing to do with any of the Inhumans we've seen so far in S.H.I.E.L.D. And, like, as far as I know, they're pretty high-profile Inhumans. So I don't know why the Inhumans that are apparently, like, they have a moon base somewhere, haven't heard of the Inhumans in S.H.I.E.L.D. Anywho, during the course of this, some people die. Some characters I didn't mention die, which is why I didn't mention them, because they're not important.
Excellent.
But also,
anyone who dies is not important.
There's also
Quote David.
That's not what I mean. But no, there's some really. I don't want to necessarily spoil it, but also it's kind of sad. Anyway,
you're kind of sad.
During the process, at one point, so another thing about Terrigenesis is if a human who doesn't have the genome touches a Terrigen crystal or gets exposed to the gas, they'll go into the cocoon. And it'll just be more like they did, like, turn to stone, basically. Like, they'll turn into solid stone, and
oh, what fun!
And they'll just, like, shatter or whatever. They'll just die in the process. And at one point during that,
is there any way to tell if someone has this gene prior to touching someone with this crystal?
At this point in the show, no.
You just gotta chance it.
No, yeah, they just gotta do it. Most of the people that are Inhumans, I think there is a trick. There is a thing they figure out towards the end of the show. But it's just unclear. I don't remember. But during the process of the show, Skye gets exposed to a Terrigen crystal, and turns out she is an Inhuman, and she gains the powers. She gains vibration powers and becomes Quake from the comic, who is a person who has vibration powers. So there's Quake, and also at one point Coulson touches a Terrigen crystal. And he is not an Inhuman, and his hand starts to go bad.
That's where he gets this thing. Okay, gotcha.
One of his other agents, I think it's Mac, basically axes his hand off to keep him from dying, and they have to. Yeah, they later on replace it with a robot hand, and it's pretty cool, guys. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's really not, because it's really just like they make it look like his hand, so it's like the special effect isn't much there, but you get to see him do some gadgety things later on in the show. It's really neat, but yeah. So, in Season 3, they go real deep into the Inhumans thing, particularly so part of it is, they finally stop Ward, right? And the way they do that is, at one point, they bring Ward to the alternate world that, Simmons is on, when they save her. And what happens is, basically, they're there, and Coulson overpowers Ward, and he uses his robot hand to crush Ward's heart.
That's what I'm talking about. Go for it.
It's the most metal thing ever.
Go big or go home.
So, when they leave that planet, the cliffhanger for the season is that Ward comes back to their world somehow. But he's, like, weird. And we find out in Season 3 that what it is there's an alien parasite that's possessing his dead body, basically, who calls himself Hive. And Hive is like kind of like you remember Apocalypse from X-Men Apocalypse, where he was like
where
he was kind of like the mutant. He's like kind of like one of the mutants that was like from the past, basically. Hive is supposed to be like Hive is supposed to be like the Inhuman. He has like power over Inhumans. He can make Inhumans, specifically Inhumans, do what he asks, basically, and he has like that's his Inhuman power, basically.
Gotcha.
And he's like one of the original Inhumans, but he was banished to this alternate plane where he possessed Ward's dead body and came back. Honestly, I feel like the real reason they did it was because the show wanted what's his name, Brett Dalton, to come back on the show, the same actor, because he does good work. So they're like, oh, he did a really good job as a bad guy. What if he came back as an even worse bad guy? And so so Hive is a pretty big deal. And so season 3 more focuses on that, more focuses on the Inhumans and stuff. We find out about Sky's dad a little bit. We find out also that her name is really Daisy Johnson, which is Quake's real name in the comics.
Of course.
And which is weird because the whole time Coulson's having trouble calling her Daisy instead of Sky, and everybody else on the team is like, oh yeah, I mean, her name's Daisy, we'll just call her Daisy now. And I felt real hard for Coulson because I did not, for the longest time, call her Daisy. I was like, now I only recently started calling her Daisy in my normal like conversations about her, because to me she was Sky for like 2.5 seasons. You know what I mean? Like, so I was just like, come on, I'm not gonna just flip flop it back to Daisy, but she does good work.
I'm not gonna respect this person's choice to be called by their name.
Yeah, but so during the course of season 3, though. Ward/Hive gets control of Daisy briefly. He gets to control her basically to turn to him, and she does some bad things under his power, and also during this time, a radical group that calls themselves the Watchdogs pops up, and they're basically a bunch of humans that are racist to Inhumans, and they're basically going around and hunting Inhumans. And Daisy, what happens is, by the end of the show, they get rid of Ward. But in the process, Daisy loses her boyfriend, Lincoln, who's another Inhuman, who doesn't matter. That's why I didn't mention him.
Excellent. Again, dead people don't matter.
Dead people don't matter.
Quote David.
But she felt really bad about his death, and also the bad thing she did as under Ward's influence or Hive's influence, that she basically left S.H.I.E.L.D. and just kind of like went rogue and just traveled the world, running around taking down the Watchdogs, basically just like killing a bunch of Watchdogs and doing things like that.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, it's also during this time that I guess not during this time, but so around this time is we get to season 4. So we're here, season 4. During this time, like I mentioned, Sky is our Daisy. Dang it, Ethan! I'm back to
her name is Sky. It's fine.
Daisy is off fighting the Watchdogs on her by her onesie, and she's kind of doing this lone hero thing, which is just kind of weak. It's just not great. Meanwhile, S.H.I.E.L.D. is kind of getting a name for itself again, and they're trying to come back in the public in a big way. And so what they did was they get a new face of S.H.I.E.L.D. Basically, they hire this new director, Jeffrey Mace, who is the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., while Coulson is working as a field agent now. He's no longer, because during season 2 and 3, Coulson was the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury passed the powers of being director of S.H.I.E.L.D. to him, and so he ran S.H.I.E.L.D. During that time. But this time they have Jeffrey Mace running S.H.I.E.L.D., and at first you don't really like him, but you kind of warm up to him. He's a pretty cool guy. And he's also considered to be an Inhuman. So that's because he has like super strength or indestructibility. I'm not certain what exactly his power is. I know he can lift
new leader
things
guy?
heavy. Yeah, Jeffrey Mace, yeah. He can lift things really heavy, and
Jeffrey Mace Hughes.
I don't know. He's kind of like All Might from My Hero Academia, I guess.
Yes.
Yes, quite.
He's just kind of strong.
But
He's like Luke Cage, or he's like homegirl who's
Yeah.
not Luke Cage.
Yeah.
Jessica Jones.
Oh, yes, quite. But yeah, so, and he's a cool character.
So if he and Jessica Jones would have punched, who would win?
Who? Jeffrey Mason, Jessica Jones?
Yeah.
Or Luke Cage and Jessica Jones?
No.
Oh, Jeffrey Mason, Jessica Jones? I don't know. They both have done some pretty... Probably her, only because, like, her feats of strength are pretty inconsistent, and, like, his are pretty consistent. Like, we've seen her do some things that are pretty amazing, and, like, we've just kind of seen him, like,
written character
list some things. Yeah.
Excellence.
Yeah.
A character with a more poorly written
power. Yeah. She's pretty well written as a character, but
so they say.
So they say. So yeah, one of the things that's cool about season 4 is they broke the season up into 3 parts instead of 2 parts, like some of the other seasons, and they gave each of those parts kind of an overarching story. Like each of them had their own arc, and they even like named those arcs. In that, the first arc being Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider gets introduced.
Oh yeah,
he shows up.
Gets a freaking Nicolas Cage up in his mug.
Actually, we get Robbie Reyes.
Oh, I don't care anymore.
Ghost Rider.
No, doesn't matter.
He drives a car. It's super dope. There's a black muscle car. Very neat. And there's a really, really cool effect when you first see him in Ghost Rider, where basically he's like chasing after some punk, like he's chasing after a gang, basically like a Mexican
time,
like a Mexican gang or whatever. And one of the guys shoots his car with a rocket launcher, and his car
one of this gang members has a rocket launcher.
Maybe it's a grenade. I don't know. There's an explosive, and they shoot his car with it. But the car flips over, and in midair it flames on basically and becomes the Ghost Rider car as it hits the ground, and so he chases after them as Ghost Rider. And I'm just like, holy crap, it's like one of the coolest like effects the show has ever put out. And apparently it was super expensive. Apparently
I imagine
Ghost Rider was super expensive, and apparently that was one of the major reasons they only did so much of Ghost Rider in the beginning of the show. Like they didn't make the whole show about Ghost Rider because it was too expensive to keep doing the Ghost Rider effects. Which I thought was really neat, because they found some really, really cool workarounds around that. They wrote some really neat stuff this season. The second arc was called LMD, standing for Life Model Decoy. In that, so there was a character, John Hannah, you may know him from The Mummy. He plays What's-Her-Bucket's brother, the archaeologist who's kind of in it for the money.
Gotcha, yeah, he's fun.
He's really good. So he shows up as a scientist named Holden Radcliffe. He showed up in season 3 towards the end, working for Hive against his will. He specializes in like prosthetics and like making your body, improving your body basically. He's all about making your body better than it is and stuff, like that kind of technology. And he was hired by Hive to make something against his will, and then basically in season 4 he was kind of under S.H.I.E.L.D. Watch basically, because some of the stuff he was doing was shady, and they were just like, we want to make sure you're not doing anything shady now. Well, in season 4 he turns out to be making a robot that is made to look like a human, like it's made to like pass as human, or as it's called, a life model decoy is what it is. And apparently he makes a couple robots specifically made to look like May and some of the other agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. basically, to pose as them.
Right, so they can get the actors and actresses back
to keep playing their roles multiple times and stuff. And also,
and is there any indication on their physical appearance that they are robots?
Not at all. Not until like they have a few effects where like, you know, like they cut themselves and you see metal or whatever, things like that. Little things, little practical effects.
We can't be affording all that.
No, yeah. No, there's not a lot of CGI with them. They're just robots. So yeah. And so there's an arc around that where basically S.H.I.E.L.D. gets infiltrated by these robots that are kind of taking over, and they're trying to figure out how to stop them, but you can't stop them because they look like you. And then like some of the robots don't know they're robots.
I would not be able to stop someone that looks like me. I would give in completely.
I mean, they look human. You jerk.
You are so attractive.
There's some.
You do whatever you want. I just please take all the money.
Take all the money.
My gosh. Just let me watch.
You, sir, are killing it.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. But it's a really, really neat story, and it puts the characters in some really interesting positions because, like, things like May has... You start to see, like, throughout the show, there's this tension between May and Phil. And that, like, they might be more than just, like, friends, but, like, they don't ever go into it, basically. There's always kind of this, like, unspoken tension, basically, between them. And it's kind of explored a little bit in this season, but, like, only after the actual May has been kidnapped and her robot self is put in place, and her robot self doesn't know she's a robot, and so there's some really neat twists in this show, like that. Like, there's other things like that with some of the other characters.
So are these robots inherently bad?
Not necessarily. Well, the ones that know they're robots are. The ones that know that they are robots are on a mission to...
ones that know that they are superior.
They know they're on a mission to stop S.H.I.E.L.D. for Radcliffe for some reason. I don't remember what his goal was. I think it was to protect them, but in a weird backwards villainy way.
Radcliffe, again, is...
being the guy who made the robots. John Hannah, the guy from Mummy.
Right. So he made the robots and told them to stop S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, he was trying to get something. There's a book called The Darkhold that was during the Ghost Rider arc, and the Darkhold was what caused some spooky stuff to happen. But basically, it's a cursed book that when you read it, it gives you like all manner of infinite knowledge, but at the cost of like kind of like making you kind of evil a little bit. It kind of overwhelms you and kind of controls you. S.H.I.E.L.D. got the book from the villain in the first arc. That was like there were some ghost people in the first arc that Ghost Rider was fighting with them, and he kind of parlayed with them for a bit to help them take down these guys. And Radcliffe used the Darkhold. Or he didn't use the Darkhold. He had his robot Ada use the Darkhold because she's a robot, and so it wouldn't influence her. But she was able to read it and getting the information for her learning apparatus, whatever. But we're kind of led to believe that she might have been turned by the Darkhold, but it turns out it's just Radcliffe just telling her to do things that are...
being Radcliffe.
But basically, his goal is he wants to get the Darkhold, but he wants to use the Darkhold to read it to gain knowledge that will help the human race, basically. But so it's kind of like... It's kind of... The Darkhold kind of becomes the One Ring.
Gotcha.
And that, like, it's one of those things where it's like...
it wants to be found.
Everybody wants it, but they may want it for good reason. But when they use it, it turns them. Basically, it doesn't make it good things. Towards the end of that arc, so Fitz helped Radcliffe create the LMDs, or he helped make the LMDs more realistic. And like he programmed them enough.
Them less pretty.
He made
them more flawed.
Yeah, a little bit. But he programmed them to be able to interact with humans more socially. Right.
Gave him some jokes.
Yeah, he gave him some
social skills.
Yeah, those kinds of things. And he also at the time was working on something called the Framework, which was supposed to be kind of a VR type thing that it was used to help. It was going to be used as a training exercise, basically, kind of like Inception, where it's like a place where the people could like fight one another and they wouldn't hurt each other badly because it's a virtual game. Like in the Matrix. So Fitz helped Radcliffe improve the robots, and Radcliffe helped Fitz improve the Framework. And towards the end of the second arc, the robots basically kidnap all of the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and lock them in the Framework. They're put in the Matrix for the third arc.
Yeah.
Super cool. So
it's like Yu-Gi-Oh!
The idea is it's an alternate universe, and what happened is every time somebody got put in it, Ada changed the robot, his first robot, Ada. She changed the Framework to fix a flaw, or fix a regret that person had in their life. Like when Coulson was put in the Framework, one of his regrets was that he joined S.H.I.E.L.D. And so he didn't join S.H.I.E.L.D. in their universe. And because of that, in their universe, S.H.I.E.L.D. failed and Hydra was in power. And in this universe, May protected... There was a mission that she felt really bad about in her past, that she had to kill an inhuman girl because she was going out of control. And in her regret was she killed this girl. So in this universe, she didn't kill the girl, and that girl went on to kill hundreds of other people, and it put S.H.I.E.L.D. in a bad light, and she ended up joining up with Hydra to stop this girl. And so she's with Hydra, and Fitz is with Hydra, Simmons is dead, Skye is working with Hydra as his ward, because they have a virtual ward in this universe, so they brought him back.
How about
And it's
he got nothing else going on.
Right?
He's like, hey guys, can I come back for a bit?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Like, he made Until Dawn, and then they were like, let's come back to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Brett Dalton, he does good work.
I imagine he does. He can just walk back on set whenever he wants.
Right? Basically.
Because you just write me
long after his character's been dead.
I don't feel like going home today.
But it was very cool. And so the only people that were in the framework that knew they were in the framework was Gemma and Sky, or Daisy, who both like kind of hacked into the framework somewhere safe. Like they were in they found a back.
Gemma
being the
Simmons,
yeah, Simmons.
So she's dead in this world.
She's dead in the world, but when she's put in the framework, she basically had to like dig her way out of her grave.
Oh, fun! No thanks. Oh, I'd have just died again. My gosh. Nah.
But they didn't know she was dead. They didn't know anything about the framework or they didn't know what the framework was like until they were in it, basically. So Daisy,
and Simmons has some powers, no powers.
Simmons doesn't have any powers. She's just really smart. She's tech smart.
Got herself out of
She dug herself out. She's got a lot of training in S.H.I.E.L.D. She knows how to handle herself in a fight. She's a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent.
Second off.
Well, it wasn't a very deep grave. It was like a mass grave.
I hope
basically.
not. Okay, so it wasn't in a coffin.
No. She was like surrounded.
She was just being crushed by Earth.
Yeah.
So she would have died instantly anyway. Okay, whatever. I'll give it to her.
Not that deep.
She was just tough.
It was a very shallow grave. Anyway.
Yeah.
So that happened. And so Gemma and Daisy have to try to convince the other members of S.H.I.E.L.D. that this is a fake world, and to come back to the real world. And there's some really neat stories about that.
Sounds very Inception.
And part of it that helps is they get Coulson on their side. He is a teacher in this universe. He became a history teacher in this universe. And since joining S.H.I.E.L.D.
Is he working at the same high school that Spider-Man works at? Goes to?
Because
that would be a fantastic little get.
That would be. I don't know. I didn't actually look into it. I have to look into it to see.
Referencing the Ultimate Spider-Man show. Where he is.
Oh, yeah. Where he's the principal. Yeah. No, that's true.
Good.
I forgot about that. Yeah. I forgot he was the principal in that school. No, he's just a teacher. But what helps them is they notice when they go to his office that he's got stuff about Tahiti in his office. And Simmons mentions to him that Tahiti is a magical place. And it kind of like triggers that like flaw in his brain where like he still has those, he knows what happened in Tahiti now at this point in the show, but that weight or whatever, that veil over his memory is still there. Like he still remembers Tahiti, like that programming is still in his brain. And basically like mentioning that Tahiti is a magical place, like kind of like triggers that flaw in his brain a little bit, and it helps him kind of snap out of it a little bit. Not enough to like him to really be like, okay, this is fake, but it's enough to convince him that, okay, maybe you're not insane and maybe I am just in a virtual world and stuff. And he tries to go along with her. But it's very cool. It was a very neat thing. And Coulson's he's such a good character. I love him so much. But yeah, and so they do all these different things, and the good guys win and all this stuff like that, and they get out of the framework and everything. But there's a lot of really good writing this show. Part of it, like one of the big parts, I think that a part of this is not only is Fitz a part of, so at this point Fitz and Simmons are together, they're dating, and they're really close. Like, I think they're living together at this point. But before they got into the framework, at least. And Fitz is now, not only is he working for S.H.I.E.L.D., he's like S.H.I.E.L.D.'s like second in command under Ada, or Ada has put herself in the framework, as a human. And she's basically taken over the framework instead of Radcliffe, because what she's done is she's decided to use the framework to kind of, so part of the framework is uploading a person's personality into the framework, basically. And so she's trying to use this as a way to create a device in the real world and a device in the framework that can make her upload her personality into a human body, so she can become human and feel things. But not just any human body. She wants to become an inhuman. She gives herself powers and things. She becomes pretty powerful in the real world. And but
who is this again?
Ada is the robot that Radcliffe created first, the first LMD.
Who looks like...
She doesn't look like anybody.
Anyway,
she's a new character. Yeah,
gotcha.
Ada's a new character that started in this season. But yeah, she was the first LMD, the first life model decoy, and she kind of got an attachment to Fitz because Fitz was attached to her in the sense that he wanted to make sure he got this robot right. He wanted to perfect this robot. He wanted to make it sure that she was right. He wanted to protect her, basically, because he didn't want S.H.I.E.L.D. to find out about her at the beginning of the show and, like, you know, get her taken away or dismantled or whatever. And he was really worried about that. And they kind of made this, like, kind of this kind of jealousy between with Simmons. Simmons kind of was jealous of Ada because of it. Yeah. And but in this world that Ada controls, she and Fitz are together. And Fitz is like the doctor. They call him the doctor, but he's the doctor in the sense that, like,
you can time travel. Got a sonic thing.
Yeah, a sonic screwdriver. He has a companion who goes through time and stuff. Right, yeah. No, he does all their torture, and he does all their interrogates people through torture, and he's also the one that, like, basically kind of kills and compiles all the information of Inhumans they've captured, because Hydra doesn't like Inhumans either. They're racist Inhumans, and so they're constantly killing Inhumans, and he's a part of that process. And
that's so strange.
And it's interesting because they've programmed, like, people have been programmed to make this world a part, the part of their life, and so they've kind of been programmed to think that this is their life now. And the thing that we'd find out that kind of turned Fitz was that his regret was that he didn't have a good relationship with his father, and so in this world he stuck with his father instead of leaving his father. And his father was a bad dude, and his father led him down a bad path and put him into Hydra, basically. And he became a Hydra agent instead of a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and like he would be. And he did some evil things in this show. And it's one of those things. It's like when they finally get out of the framework, they all get out of the framework, but it's like they still have, like, all of the memories of this virtual life they've lived, all of the years of their lives. And so there's this real intense struggle with Fitz that he's like, he knows he's Fitz, but he is also like, I did these evil things. He's like, I'm a bad guy because I did this thing. And it's so good. It's so well written. And
you're so well written, David.
The guy that plays Fitz, I cannot pronounce his name to save my life. He acts the crap out of this role. He does such a good job. And you feel for Fitz and Simmons.
Don't tell me what I feel, David.
Oh, man. And you just ship it so hard. Oh, I ship it. And it's one of those things that's like...
ship it all you want.
It's really good. But the show ends in kind of like, like I said, the good guys finally win and they finally beat the thing. And I'm vague on the details because, like, I think this season's kind of like one of its biggest things, one of its, like, best parts is the details, like the way they do things this season, and really in the show in general is, like, kind of neat. Like the things they figure out and how they figure them out, how they do them and incorporate them is kind of really, really the main appeal. In the end of the show, the cliffhanger for this end of the season is that Coulson wakes up in a room and he's kind of dressed in kind of rags or like ratty clothing basically, and he looks out his window and he's in space and he's like staring out into space for a bit.
That's right.
And then he's just like, all right, Coulson, that's enough sightseeing, time to get to work. And he just like walks out of the room he's in or cell he's in, I don't know what. And so everybody's just like, what are they doing in space? Were they kidnapped? Winning. Is this an upgrade? Are they...
Maybe it's an elaborate plot to link it into the Inhumans.
Maybe. Could be. It would be.
Maybe that would help the Inhumans.
Maybe that'll help that show, yeah. I don't know, man. I hear that show's so bad.
That's it.
I hear it's really bad. And I don't really want to watch it.
I haven't seen it. I don't plan to.
I plan to just keep watching Agents, but it's... Oh, man. Oh, I mentioned earlier Phil's robot arm. So, I think in season 3... I think is what it is. There's a moment where something heavy falls on him and another agent he's with, and he makes a shield with his arm,
a whale,
like a metal box, basically, like one of those like freight type things.
Box. Okay, safe.
Like no, it's like part of a truck. Anyway,
okay. I thought we were guessing, but so you can just kill that.
Yes,
fine,
I did.
Whatever you want. David.
Sorry, but the point is, so like he has this like it's like a hard light shield, kind of like a Green Lantern construct or something. Like it's see through, but it's
like
it's tangible
from Voltron.
Yes, very much like that. but it's shaped and designed like Captain America's shield.
Yeah, of course it would be.
Of course it would be.
And it's got Captain America's signature at the bottom of it.
Right. Basically, it might as well.
In blood.
It's like white and blue instead of red and white. Or red and blue.
That's fantastic.
And it was really funny.
I so badly want them to just pop him into one of the movies.
I know! Please!
Show up.
I want to
be like, wait a second.
Because he's grown into such a beast in this show. Like, he's done so many cool things.
I hope he pops up at, like, the end of, like, Infinity Wars or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That way he can just be like, oh, whatever nonsense y'all did with those gems, that's how I'm here. Da, 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 da. That way he can still keep his secret nonsense.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Just be like, oh, cool, awesome.
Be like, oh, yeah, that's how I got
glad
back.
to have you back. And he'll be like, yeah. It's all that cool stuff you do. How do you know about all that cool stuff? Oh, don't worry about
it. So he does all that. But no, one of the things that's cool is, so he uses the shield quite a bit, and it's always fun. Because he mentions that at one point, he's like, I just thought it would be neat if the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. had a shield. And I thought that was really fun. But then, in this season, the fourth season, there's this guy who comes up, or who finds out about Coulson. He's the guy leading the Watchdogs, basically. This Russian guy who's leading the Watchdogs and trying to kill Inhumans. And he realizes that one of the big reasons the Watchdogs keep losing.
By the way, I'm pretty sure escudo means shield.
Escudo?
So since the beginning of this show, I've been trying to think of what Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Shield
is in Spanish. And I was like, agentes del escudo? I think. But yes, it is true. I was correct.
Agentes del escudo?
Shield.
Del escudo. Okay. But no, so...
Assuming agentes is a real word and I didn't just make that up.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't make up Spanish words. Or if I do, then I guess they're probably real because I know Spanish so well.
One of the big things that...
del escudo.
So the Russian doesn't like Coulson. I don't remember the Russian's name. I think he calls himself the Superior Man. I think that's his alias he goes by.
Is who?
This Russian guy who's leading the Watchdogs. He's the villain. He's another villain in this season. He works with Ada towards the end of the set, like kind of unwillingly, but because she kind of like she kind of kills him, not in a real sense, but in the sense that like she basically carves his brain out and hooks it up to a computer, and then she makes like a bunch of robots that look just like him that he's still controlled with his mind. Yeah, so his human mind is alive and controlling robots of himself.
Right. So she turned him into like a
bunch of robots.
Human, I guess like an Iron Man kind of.
Yeah, kind of.
How Tony Stark can have all those different bots.
Yeah. I know what you mean. But. So there's this conflict between. So he has a few clashes with Coulson, but nothing ever comes of it. But basically, he believes Coulson to be a coward who's hiding behind his precious shield, being the agency, not the actual literal shield.
When is this happening again?
This is season 4. This is towards the third arc.
A lot of stuff is happening in this show.
There's a lot. Well, this is all season 4 stuff. Season 4, like I said, season 4 had
that's what I'm
3
saying.
interlocking stories.
Crap ton of stuff in this.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff in it.
Jesus, how many episodes is it?
It's only 22, 20, something like that. It's not any more than like Arrow or Flash. Like its seasons are pretty concise. No, even less than It's about 24 episodes, 24 episodes, I think, 23 episodes. One of those ranges.
And they fit 3 stories into that.
Yeah, each of them about 8 episodes long. So yeah, it's about 24 episodes.
See, this just makes me so upset about the Netflix
the Netflix series, right?
Makes me so angry.
Exactly. This show, they did so much cool
was
stuff.
Iron Fist doing?
But
we talked about that too much. Please continue.
No. I only mentioned the Russian. He's not really important to the overarching story. I only mentioned him because there's this really, really cool moment where Coulson.
Does he have a really awesome Russian accent?
Yeah,
he does.
Pretty great Russian accent. I would attempt it, but I'm bad at accents.
The superior man.
Yeah.
The superior comrade.
Yes, that's him. That's the guy. You sound just like him. Man, he thought he was right here. But no. So
obviously
he has this.
Not quite as handsome.
There's this moment where when Coulson first gets out of the framework, and he gets cornered by the Superior Man, and the guy, he's like ranting at him and getting all in his face about how he hides behind his precious shield and blah 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 blah. And like as he
punch him in the face with his shield.
No, what happens is he gets close enough that he's like almost. I think he's got a knife. I think he's trying to stab Coulson. But what he does instead is like Coulson backs him up, and then he has his arm against his like chest like this, like horizontally across his chest, and he activates his shield. and it like goes off and it like cuts his face in half.
Man?
Yeah, inside of his face. Like it just cuts his face clean off.
It's cold blooded.
That's when he finds out it's a robot though. But it's so just like,
man,
right?
I wanted to kill somebody today.
But he was like, but he has this moment where he's just like, that's not the only, yeah. He's like, that's not the only use for a shield, or the only way to use a shield. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh yeah, that's super cool. But yeah, no, that is very Marvel in that like there's a lot less body count in Marvel, or a lot less blood and gore in it. It's more like just yeah. And Ghost Rider comes back briefly to do some cool stuff. Is
he going to be in season 5?
I hope so. I think there's rumors of him in season 5. It's that he kind of has this like they have his arc is kind of like they have this thing where he kind of the idea is he kind of goes back to hell, or he goes to hell to do something, but it's like it's one of those things. It's like he can always come back.
See his ma.
Right. Well, really, what he does is he takes the
he
takes the Darkhold to hell, basically, because he's like it has
the book thing,
the evil book. Yeah, he takes it to hell.
It's like, look, y'all don't need to be messing with this.
Yeah,
go put this back. It's like a Death Note. It got out,
right? Like, it got out. Yeah,
just go bring this back.
Just put it back to hell. Yeah,
we'll go find where you could be like, hey, stop dropping this.
Stop dropping the Death Note. I'll drop you. Yeah, no, it's gosh, but it's so cool. Like some of the things they do in this, some of the fights.
That's some fan art I'm gonna do.
The fight art, the fight choreography in this show is really good.
Ghost Rider with that book, and Light with the other book.
Right.
And you're like, game on.
Game on. I mean, you could try killing the Ghost Rider with the Death Note, but it wouldn't work.
Nope.
He's super strong, and what's really cool about what's so cool about the Ghost Rider in this season is besides Robbie Reyes being actually a genuinely cool character with like some like kind of a flawed backstory, kind of like you would with the Ghost Rider. He has like this like tale of vengeance basically that kind of drew him to making the contract with the devil or Mephisto or whoever. But there's so in the course of the show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they have these like they encounter a lot of superpowered people, right? And so they have to create a cell that can contain superpowered people. Like, it's basically made of a particularly, like, high-grade material that basically we're led to believe, like, kind of shifts and changes due to whatever power is involved in it. And it also has powers it also has the ability to kind of cancel out a lot of, like, activated abilities. So people can't just, like, flame on inside of a room. Or if they flame on, the flames don't affect the wall and things like that. And so it's made to be able to, like, protect, like, to contain any superpowered person, for what we can tell. But Ghost Rider's power isn't biological or scientific or even like alien. It's like straight up magical. Like it's he gets his power from hell. And so there's this moment where they like hold Ghost Rider in one of these containment cells and he just busts out of it.
Yep.
And I'm just like,
yep.
Like, brush up on some magic. Like,
that's
you're gonna have to figure it out. Like,
oh, I'm so glad they did that. Though.
It's such a good scene.
Went there. That's so good. I'm glad that we're getting more magic and things.
Yeah,
like that
and that was supposed to the introduction to Ghost Rider was supposed to correspond with the release of Doctor Strange, but there was never any references to Doctor Strange because Doctor Strange didn't really interact with the public much besides his girlfriend Doctor.
That's true.
Like, he didn't really, like, everything he did was kind of in that alternate plane where the New York was just kind of shifting.
But apparently someone knows about him.
Yeah, someone does.
He's name dropped in a movie that we've already mentioned on this podcast. The Winter Soldier.
The Winter Soldier? He's mentioned in... Stephen Strange is mentioned. One of the brilliant scientists they know of him.
Locked onto by this algorithm, yeah.
But they don't know that he's Doctor Strange, I don't think. They just know he's super smart.
They did. I don't know.
I thought they just knew he was super smart, is what it was.
But I mean, I'm just wondering why his name would come up.
Because he's supposed to be like the third smartest person in the Marvel Universe or something. Like, he went to, like, he, Tony Stark, and Bruce Banner were, like, the three smartest people.
Why would Homeboy know that?
Who?
Oh, like the guy who was spouting out his name. He was like, oh.
I thought it was because he went to school with him.
Super smart. I don't know.
I thought it was because I thought that was the line, was that he went to school with, like, these, smart people. I don't remember what it was. No, it was one of the agents, right? Yeah,
it was one of the agents. They were interrogating him. They were like, why do we have this algorithm? And he was like, oh, it's to find people. And they were like, who? And he was just like, who the frick ever? Stark, Strange, all these, and he was just like naming people.
I'll have to go back and rewatch them because I don't remember that.
Shortly before he died.
I see, yes.
He gets ripped out of the car by the Winter Soldier.
Oh.
Which is great. This is when they're on the rooftop, and they throw him off the rooftop.
Ah.
And then that's in the introduction of Falcon. Yeah, that's the name. Falcon grabs him, pulls him up to the rooftop, throws him back on the rooftop, and they're like, "Are you gonna talk to us now?" And he's like, "Yeah, look."
Yeah, okay.
And then they're driving him somewhere, and that's when Bucky attacks them. That's when they have their first real daylight altercation with Bucky.
I see.
The Winter Soldier.
Cool.
Then they have a really cool knife fight, and Bucky's face mask gets ripped off.
Oh, the knife fight's so cool.
Homeboy says,
so freaking cool.
"Bucky?" And he's like, "Who the F is Bucky?" And they run off.
And then he runs off. Yeah. No, I get that. So...
Anyway, recap on that movie.
Doctor Strange. So they had Doctor Strange, and then they had yeah. So, but that's the thing. I mentioned earlier, in the beginning of the show, they make references to Thor, they make references to the Avengers, they make references to a lot of the movies that are happening. But as the show, like, during season 3 and 2 kind of went more into hiding, like, they stopped making as many references. They made a few references throughout that time. But in season 4, they basically just didn't make any references to the Marvel Universe. Like, there's no mention of Civil War. The only reference they have, really, is when S.H.I.E.L.D. starts to become, again in the public eye, there's references to the Sokovia Accords. Because that's how they're doing a thing, and it's
that's more than what we got in the Defenders,
and
that seems to be pulling itself away from.
And at that point, like in this season, what they've done is they've gotten all of the Inhumans that they've introduced in season 3 and in the past seasons to sign these Sokovia Accords, and they're keeping tabs on all of the Inhumans they've encountered.
Gotcha.
Whether we've seen them on screen or not, like they've got records for all of these Inhumans that we've seen in the show or haven't seen in the show, and they're super super cool. And they have this one girl, Yo-Yo, who can go super duper fast, and she goes super fast, and then she has a limit to how far she can go, and then once that limit is up, she springs back to where she was. So she can go super fast, but then she'll keep blinking back to where she was. She can't keep going fast, but she's super duper cool. She's
go fast. Real fast.
She's Hispanic. She speaks a lot of Spanish in the show, and It's really really cool. I thought she's a character she's a character you might like. Yeah, she's pretty cool. She gets a thing for Mac. She likes him a lot. He's a cool character. She has a pretty heart-wrenching moment in season 4, and I don't mean heart-wrenching in that it was sad, but heart-wrenching in that there's a very feelsy moment in season 4 with her and Mac.
A very feelsy moment
because of the framework and some of the stuff that goes on there. But yeah, gosh. The show is so good. So what I felt like the show has been doing is the show has been getting a lot of limitations, and it's been finding really neat and interesting ways to work around those limitations, and it's just getting better and better because I feel like if it wasn't for that whole having to rewrite the entire ending of season 1 limitation, having to just completely just jump ship, they wouldn't know how to improvise. But this show has gotten really good at improvising. And it's very cool, some of the stuff they do.
Yeah.
Not everything is great. I think one of the things I kind of got tired of by season 3 was the fact that Hydra was behind everything. So it was neat to see that Hydra wasn't behind anything in season 4. They just weren't in the picture at all.
Been crippled enough to
they defeated him 3 seasons in a row. That finally Hydra was kind of either gone or in hiding.
Hopefully now in the Netflix universe, we won't hear about
the hand as much.
A couple of seasons.
Yeah, I would say I'll give it another season or 2, and then the Hydra will probably come back in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or whatever.
Yeah.
They'll run out of
Defenders 2 will just be the hand again.
Right.
Round 2.
Round 2. Yeah, they'll just be back. Danny Rand in the hand. Round 2. Hopefully Danny Rand is better at that point.
Man, I want some Daredevil again. I'm excited for another season of that.
Yeah, me too. I really want to see a season of Power Man and Luke Cage. I want to see him. Power Man and Iron Fist.
Good involving Power Man and Iron Fist.
Do the thing, man. Do the thing. But yeah, so that's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Honestly, looking back, I didn't spoil a whole lot of this season because I kind of strayed away from some of the more interesting opponents, just the major plot points. There's some good bits in there.
Perhaps when I watch it in 3 years or so.
Yes, quite.
We can come back to it.
Yes. It's a really good show, and I'm super excited. Hopefully some of you watch it, some of you don't and should. Let me know in the comments. Tell me what you think.
Cool, man.
Tell me who your favorite character is. Do you ship Fitzsimmons? And if you don't, where is your heart?
Tell David why he's wrong about stuff.
Who hurt you?
But yeah, that'll do it. That's the show for this week. Remember to find us on Twitter at TMYKPod. Find us on the Facebook at TMYKPod. Find us at YouTube. Those Nerds You Know. We're on Podbean and iTunes. And hopefully we'll be on more stuff soon enough. You can email us at thosenerdsyouknowpod@gmail.com. And that's about it. I'm Ethan.
I'm David.
And we are Those Nerds You Know. Bye!